And Rob, if you can start
recording. Thank you, Lorenzo.
You can start recording, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And welcome, everyone. Like Lorenzo mentioned, we have a great product to showcase for you here today. N2 Funding's implementation of the FeeWise product is wonderful, very thoughtful, in my humble opinion. And so I'm going to go ahead and log right in to the N2 Funding portal, just like you normally would. And I will make my way to my pipeline. Focus on a wholesale loan today. I have a handful of loans sitting in my pipeline. The first thing I want to point out is that before you can enter the FeeWise system, you are required to go through the pricing engine first. Whether you're ready to lock your loan or you're simply floating your loan, we do want you to establish the product and the price and the rate in the pricing engine. I'm going to grab a loan from my pipeline here and just show you what happens if you try to come into FeeWise before the pricing engine. For example, picked up a loan. I'm going to click on itemization inputs under loan actions. This is a new loan action for you to get into FeeWise. But if I have not yet gone through the pricing engine, I will simply receive a friendly message indicating I need to go through the product and pricing engine first. So I will do so just through your normal means. There's nothing special about what I'm showing you here, but really just trying to underscore the sequence of events that are required. So I am just going to jump ahead here into the pricing engine and go through the product and price selection. Again, nothing new. You're already used to this. So bear with me a moment while I go through these motions. Okay, and I am going to submit this form as is. Just take the first qualified product. Which product and price I select for demonstration purposes is not necessarily critical. Select a price, and I could lock my loan if I was in a position to do so, if pricing was active and such on the product I selected. But for today, I'm simply going to register the loan or float the loan, which basically is just going to save the product and pricing selection back to the core system. And it's also going to free us up to enter the FeeWise platform and go through our disclosure process. We'll let this wrap up here, and then we'll shift gears. Okay, so there we go. We have a 30-year fix tied to this loan. And now I will come back down here to the loan actions, our new loan action itemization inputs. And now whenever I click on that navigation item, I will be allowed into the FeeWise platform. And our starting point will be an input form, which is largely populated based on my Fannie file that I uploaded to register the loan initially in the portal, and also having gone through the product and pricing engine, we have already established the product, the rate, who's paying my compensation and how much that compensation will be. The price is also established. One side note is that you may have already told the system whether you were buying out the underwriting fee or not. You will be able to change that value here. Note, it's really on you to make sure this is correct. That if you told the pricing engine that you were not buying out the underwriting fee, then that's really what you should tell the disclosure platform too. That's a dots that we will connect in a better way down the road. But just for now, know that just like this tooltip or message would tell you that if you say yes, let's make sure that the price is reflected, that you told the pricing engine that you're buying out the underwriting fee, and that the pricing engine had the opportunity to adjust your price accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and say no to the question today. Next question that I need to answer is if there's a third-party processing fee on this loan, and I'll say that there is. I'll get another question dynamically because I said there's a third-party processing fee. The system also wants to know if that processor is affiliated with my broker company, and I'll say No, that's not the case today. Credit report fee, is there one? Is there not one? I'll say no. If I said yes, then the credit report fee would automatically populate on the itemization. I'm going to keep going down this form. We have an area for you to plug in any notes, whether you have notes about your comp or something related to underwriting this loan or anything else special about this loan. You could plug those notes in here free form. But I'm going to scroll down this input form a little further and show you a few other sections. Next up would be related to title, where we will either default to a national title provider or you can pick from a list. And we're going to have a large list of title providers for you to choose from based on the location of the subject property. And one note here will be that if you don't see the provider that you know you want to use, just let the system default to a national provider for now. And then when we get to the next step, I'll talk more about how you can swap out the title quote for the fees that belong to the title provider that you're most interested in. In any event, I'll go ahead and let the system do just that, default to a national provider. And I have a question to answer here as to whether the escrow company is affiliated with my broker company or not. And I'll say that it is not the case. Next section down is related to appraisal more than anything and the property. And so we will ask you to select an AMC of your choosing. Note that this is a starting point. There are more AMCs being added to the system for N2 funding on a regular basis. But for now, I'll just simply select one. I'll go with AMCO, I suppose. And moving along here, I have several questions that are defaulted to no that are all related to the appraisal. For example, do I have a property inspection waiver already out of the AUS? Or is this an investment property in need of a rent schedule? Is it a rural property? Do I need a rush on this appraisal? And if you start to answer yes to some of these questions, it's going to impact the appraisal fee quote, make it more accurate. Other notes I'll make real quickly about this section would be that if you did not know the hazard insurance or property tax monthly amounts, which are required fields, leave, well, that's right, you can't leave them blank. In this case, they're required fields, so you will need to plug in something. I'll back off what I was about to say there. Last question I need to answer in this section is related to homeowners association. Is there one for the property? I'll say yes, just so you can see what happens next. When there is an HOA, we'll also ask about the estoppel fee. And for grins, I'll say yes, there's also an estoppel fee for this property. Now, if I scroll down, we have our final section here, the loan scenario section, most of which is already going to be populated on all of your loans, having gone through the pricing engine already. One field that I need to fill out here is the estimated submission date. I expect to submit this loan today, and so I'll go ahead and put in today's date. And let's push this closing date out till next month. That probably feels a little better. And that's it. There's nothing else that we have to do. Note that you could plug in an earnest deposit or seller credit, but they're not required fields. And when I'm ready, I'll scroll back up to the top in this case, and I'll click on the Proceed to Itemization button. And then behind the scenes, we're calculating your itemization, your APR. We have compliance tests that are running, that sort of a thing. And then ultimately, we will build up to presenting a full-blown itemization to you here for your review. So I'll start by just showing you the itemization. So we see that appraisal company's fee that we chose. We also see there's a third-party processing fee. We told the system that there was a third-party processing fee involved. And we have our title quote, government fees, in this case, a little bit of prepaid interest, our escrowed fees, and then we have several that fall under Section H down here, like that estoppel fee we told the system about. We'll also see which title provider was used for the quote. Remember, I just told the system it could default to a national provider. And this loan did not require mortgage insurance, but if it did, we would show you exactly who we were quoting. Now, let's talk about a few things here. One is that just in general, you'll have some latitude to make changes here. You may need to add some fees that are not going to programmatically show up on the itemization. You can see that there's quite a list here to choose from. And if you were looking for something specific, like let's say, hey, I know this is the type of property that needs a second appraisal because it's a certain loan amount in California, or you may have your reasons. I'm just using this as a random example. Point being is that you start to type in what you're looking for, the system will filter your options accordingly. So you can add any number of fees that are needed. You can also edit several of the fees or delete some of the fees that show up on the itemization programmatically. And then, and by the way, just as an example, like the appraisal fee, and maybe you need to modify this fee because you know it's higher and the system just didn't quote it the way you expected. You have latitude to increase the appraisal fee all the way up to $2,500 if that was needed. We know that you're going to know better than us what's going on with this particular loan and that particular property. Now, the other thing I want to point out is around title fees in particular, that if you find or you don't find the provider that you were expecting, or maybe you just don't think the title quote is fully accurate, you can add more title fees through the add button I showed you earlier. You can also modify the fees that the engine quotes. And the last thing to note here is that if you do make changes to the title fees that are quoted by the system, then we will also ask you to enter the service provider's information. In that circumstance, you'll be given the opportunity to document the title provider separate from the escrow provider, should they be two separate providers. But if you don't make any changes to title fees, then there's no SSPL data entry that's required of you. And in this case, I think that's what I'll do just for demonstration purposes today. So First American will be our title company. So if I'm ready to take that next step, I'll click on Preview LE. And that's exactly where I'll go next, where I will see we have 3 pages of the loan estimate to review. We also have compliance results. I can see right away that there was at least one problem with my compliance test, so we'll get to that in a moment. But first, just real quickly, we have page 1 of the loan estimate focused on the monthly payment breakdown. Page 2, which has all our fees categorized, and of course will look familiar to everyone. We have our cash to close calculated. Page 3, with our APR calculated and a few other calculations that you find on page 3 of the loan estimate. And then our compliance results. And let's see what's happening here. So QM, we did not pass QM, so let's build up to those results and see why. But first things first, let's take a look down here at our points and fees test. We can see what's included, what's excluded. And then we have our high price test, which we passed with flying colors. Our high cost test. Again, plenty of headroom there. But our QM determination failed just by the smallest of margins, $71. And so the question here becomes, well, 2 things. One is, this is not a hard stop. If you're not sure what to do about this, just move forward in your process, ultimately submit the loan to N2 funding, and they'll help you from there. But you have the opportunity to try to remedy a failed compliance test. Let's see if we can do that for ourselves. We're looking for $71. And let's see, the admin fee, I'd have to buy it out. The only other fee that was in the mix there, which one was it? Oh, it was my lender comp. I'm not going to be able to change that legally. So I think buying out the underwriting fee is the only way that we're going to pass that compliance test. And like I started off with in the presentation today, please do make sure you go through the pricing engine if you're going to change this value. But for the moment, and I know that you all are tracking with me so far, so for the moment, I'm just going to go ahead and tell the system right here to buy out the underwriting fee. I really should go through the pricing engine and update the price. But I'm going to ask you just to use your imagination there, just to save a little bit of time. And let's go ahead and generate our itemization again. We won't have an underwriting fee, of course, because we just told the system that we are buying it out. And then when we move on to compliance, we pass compliance with flying colors and to include the QM determination. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward in the process to request the loan estimate. This is the final screen in the workflow. We just want to give you the opportunity to backtrack if you need it. We have a summary of the highlights of this loan estimate here on the screen. We could backtrack to the compliance results and the loan estimate preview, the itemization, or back to the inputs. But if we're ready to move forward with this loan, we'll click Proceed to Submit Loan. And that's exactly what will happen next is, one, we're submitting your disclosure request, but see the verbiage on the screen. We're very explicit in explaining to you that you're not done yet. This is step 1 of 2 in submitting this loan to N2 funding. So once this process completes, which it did just complete, we still want you to submit your loan via the Submit Loan action right here. And before I do that, I am going to show you really basically what happens when you submit for disclosure. So I submitted for disclosure. I will receive this email right here. Lorenzo's team at N2 Funding also is quite aware when these requests come through. And then embedded inside of this confirmation email is a confirmation document, which will contain everything about your transaction. So the timestamp, if you put any notes on the input form, they would display here, highlights of the loan estimate, high-level compliance results, the itemization. This would be after any modifications I might have made to the itemization. Who are some of the providers involved, and then also all of the inputs that I submitted to the system in generating my request to begin with. We want to make sure there is no ambiguity between the N2 Funding Disclosure Desk and your company. So with that being said, I think I will maybe take this final step to submit the loan, because that's exactly what we want you to do. And you know how this works. You've submitted loans through the portal before. And I have a whole bunch of fields I need to fill out. I'm not going to do that for demonstration purposes, but I do want to emphasize that this is really your final step in the process, is to submit that loan to N2 Funding so they can start to do their good work on the loan. Let me take a pause here, and Lorenzo, I can kick it back to you, and then ultimately see if there are any questions from the group.
Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Any of the highlights?
I think we covered it all. The only thing I would maybe if we could go back and just go back to the FeeWise landing page and just quickly cover over the borrower paid and the options that would appear there. We can quickly cover that.
Oh, sure.
Without
great point.
Product and pricing.
That's a great point. That's right. So when you went through the pricing engine, if you had selected that it was a borrower paid loan instead of lender paid, then you would see borrower paid here instead of lender paid, and you could key in the amount that you're being paid by the borrower, whether it's a percentage of the loan or a flat dollar amount. You would key it in, and that would be factored into the itemization. It would be factored into our compliance results, and ultimately it would be disclosed along with other fees. Good point.
And just to reemphasize, it will have to match with pricing. So when you guys go through the product and pricing, if you wanted to do borrower paid in this step, you would need to make sure that you price it out that way.
That's exactly right. It's an option on the pricing engine's interface. Yes, sir.
Are there any questions from anybody? All right. Looks like no questions. So we appreciate your guys' time and attendance. Most importantly, we appreciate your partnership with N2. Everybody that is on this call and your brokerage office has access to FeeWise effective today. We will start looking for these items to be submitted really effective today, but really want to focus on it on a go-forward basis. So if you guys want to complete those on all new submissions, we greatly appreciate it, and please provide any feedback to your account executive or myself. I will actually be sending a list to all parties that were on the training with all my direct contact information, so because I will be the point of contact for any issues with the FeeWise product or questions. Other than that, if there's no questions, we appreciate your time, and we hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yes, thanks everyone.
All right.
Take care and have a wonderful day.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Take care.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.